atheists and Christians are both wrong. The answer is somewhere in the middle. Welcome to Friday Fallacy. This week we're looking at the argument to moderation fallacy. The argument to moderation fallacy is when a compromise is assumed to be correct simply because it's a moderate position. That is, rather than establishing that both extremes are actually incorrect, it is simply asserted that some middle position must be correct. This is not a sound way of arguing, as in some disputes, one side is correct and the other is incorrect. That some people believe that the Holocaust didn't happen in no way means that the consensus view is wrong and that the actual numbers of deaths was much lower. That some people believe in creationism doesn't mean that in reality there was a mix of evolution and creation. Some examples of the argument to moderation fallacy. Look, people have strong views either way. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Vaccinations aren't 100% effective, but the anti-vaccine crowd are nuts. We should allow people to make up their own minds. Sure, some atheists are sexist, but you're only causing divisions in the community by pointing that out. We need to find common ground between both sides. Nobody can be 100% sure one way or the other, so the most logical position is agnosticism. Not all compromises are the argument to moderation fallacy. If it can be established that the two sides genuinely are extremes on a spectrum, and that a middle option is logically sound, then to compromise is rational. The argument to moderation fallacy generally occurs when one of the views is not actually an extreme, like comparing the Tea Party to Democrats. Or it hasn't been established that a middle option is actually sound, like between racism and civil rights. Also, the argument to moderation fallacy only occurs when arguing about the truth of something, which isn't always the focus of policy debates. For example, someone who believes in aggressive action to address climate change may still agree to a compromise approach on the grounds that it is the strongest policy that is likely to be acted on. The key difference here is that we can agree to a moderate course of action without agreeing to a moderate belief. One way that people often argue to moderation is to assert that the two sides are both likely to be wrong and that the truth will be somewhere in between. For example, two people have been fighting may both claim to have been acting in self-defense and to have been hit without provocation. To say that both sides are likely to be wrong is, strictly speaking, true, since we know that human perception, memory, and cognitive biases mean that even the most honest person is generally unable to give a completely accurate account of events. Also, to say that the truth is probably somewhere in between is also, strictly speaking, true, since both persons' claims are at the extreme of the spectrum of accepting responsibility, and so the actual amount of responsibility will lie somewhere between. But that these statements may be strictly true is not helpful, since it doesn't address whether one person's claim is substantially more true than the other. The false compromise here would be to confuse the fact that there is always some doubt in someone's story with the conclusion that they are both equally responsible. One person may still have been the aggressor without accepting that the other person's story unconditionally. In conclusion, the argument to moderation fallacy is when a compromise position is argued for simply because opposing positions exist. Until next time, keep your fallacies to yourself.